Have you ever found yourself trying to motivate someone, maybe a student, a child, or even someone on your team, and you just feel like you're spinning your wheels? You bring all the energy, you plan these fun activities, but something just doesn't land. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things we deal with. So let's dive into this puzzle and see if we can find that missing piece. Wow, this quote from a teacher just perfectly sums up that feeling, doesn't it? You can almost feel the exhaustion there. They're doing everything they think they're supposed to do. They're being fun, they're being energetic, but the engagement, it just isn't real. It's all on the surface.
So what is the missing ingredient? If it's not about being more entertaining or finding some new killer activity, then what is it? Well, the answer is actually a lot deeper, and it means we have to completely rethink how we look at learning and, well, control.
And that leads us straight to our first big idea. Now, we've all heard the term learner-centered, right? It gets thrown around all the time. But what does it really mean? Turns out, it's not just another teaching trick. It's a whole different way of thinking. Okay, this slide really gets to the heart of it. On the one hand, you've got this superficial view where learner-centered just means doing stuff like group work. But think about it. You can be sitting in a group, doing exactly what you're told, and be totally checked out. The deeper meaning, though, that's a huge shift. It's about trust, it's about empathy, it's about giving learners real, genuine power over their own journey. So here's the bottom line. A truly learner-centered approach is one where the energy, the direction, the power, it all comes from the learners. It runs on their interests, their questions, their choices. This isn't about the teacher just disappearing. It's about the teacher creating a space where the students can finally step up. So how do we create that kind of space? Well, to figure out where we're going, we're going to need a map. And that's exactly what this next concept is. Let's take a look at the spectrum of control. Think of this as a guide to the political landscape of any learning environment, really. And here it is. This is our map. All the way on the far right, you've got total teacher or leader control. They make every single decision. Then, way over on the far left, you have full autonomy, where learners are in the driver's seat. And of course, there's all that space in the middle for negotiation. Every classroom, every office, every family, we all exist somewhere on the spectrum. So let's break down these three main zones. That traditional zone on the right, that's old school, pure top-down control, no questions asked. The modern zone in the middle is probably where most of us live. There's some discussion, some negotiation, but at the end of the day, the person in charge still has the final say. But it's that learner-centered zone on the left where things get really transformative. That's about true autonomy. All right, so if moving left on the spectrum is the key to real engagement, how do we actually do it? This isn't about flipping a switch overnight. It's a journey. So let's look at some really practical first steps you can take to start moving in that direction. And the absolute #1 rule for this journey is go slowly. Seriously, if you suddenly hand over all the controls to a group that's used to being told exactly what to do, it can completely backfire. They might feel lost or confused or even angry. The key is to make this a gradual, deliberate shift. And here are 4 really simple, low-risk ways to start. First, start ridiculously small. Tiny little choices like, should I write this on the board? Build confidence. Second, offer simple A or B options. Do we want to do the story or the grammar exercise? This gives a feeling of control without being overwhelming. Third, and this one is so important, if you offer a choice, it has to be genuine. You have to be ready to honor their decision. And finally, be straight with them about the things that aren't up for debate. Being honest about constraints is what builds trust. And all of this is built on a very simple but powerful trade-off. It really is the core principle of this whole thing. Giving up some of our control directly fuels the motivation of other people. The more ownership someone feels over what they're doing, the more invested they're going to be. But this all leads us to the real heart of the matter. We've been talking about how we can create motivation. But what if we've been looking at the whole problem backwards? Let's dig into the surprising truth about where motivation really comes from. Which brings us to the ultimate question. After all of this, what is the secret? How do we finally crack the code on motivation? The secret is that you can't. You can't motivate anyone. Now, I know that sounds really provocative, maybe even a little depressing, but stick with me for a second, because this idea is actually incredibly freeing. Let me show you what I mean.
See, the problem isn't that people lack motivation. Just think about it. From the time we're babies, humans are these naturally curious, driven creatures. The real problem is that so many of our systems, our schools, our workplaces, they accidentally crush that natural motivation with too many rules and top-down decisions. Our job isn't to be the motivational speaker, it's to be the gardener who creates the right conditions and then gets out of the way.
When learning feels like it's ours, when it's what's called self-appropriated, it becomes incredibly powerful and self-sustaining. You don't need external rewards or a song and dance. The motivation just comes from within. And the best part is, you don't need to start a revolution to get there. Even what the source calls these small crumbs of democracy, those tiny choices we talked about, they can make a massive difference.
So let's end on this thought. Think about your own world for a second. Your team, your class, even your family. Where do you think you fall on that spectrum of control? And, maybe more importantly, after everything we've just talked about, where do you want to be? That journey begins with one small, deliberate step to the left. What's yours going to be?